If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sackheads. Sackheads. Radio. Sackheads. Sackheads. Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
It was the biggest spider I'd ever seen.
It always has been.
Yeah, so why does...
Thanks, Sacco.
Breaking news, that was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Breaking news out of Los Angeles. They called out the riot police. More on that later. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. Who are the riot police? I thought like LAPD was down there.
Weren't they an 80s hair band?
The riot police?
The riot police. They should have been. How is that not a name of an 80s hair band?
We need to make a band, the riot police.
Do you play an instrument?
We can't talk about that right now.
Okay.
We have pictures of Sacco playing an instrument. He's actually a great musician.
Sacco's an amazing musician.
He does all of our stunts.
All the music.
I mean, our music. We do our own stunts. I don't think people realize that.
Well, you know what's funny is...
the jokes that we tell.
Usually after the show, it takes us a couple days to get over the bumps and bruises we get on the stunts that we pull on the show.
It's amazing, and this is why we need a webcam.
No, we don't.
Listen, if people could see the stunts that we pull during the show, we would be famous, like more famous than we are now.
You think so?
How could we not be?
Okay.
You know that thing you do?
You
know the thing.
That thing I do. I know exactly what it is. It's hard to explain to people.
But our audience doesn't, and they need to see it.
Good call on that. We got to work that out. Hey, it is the 26th of November in the year 2014. It is Thanksgiving Eve, ladies and gentlemen. One of the absolute biggest drinking nights of the year. That is a fact, Jack. That is statistically proven. But we chose to be here with you. Why? Because we love you. And
I love you.
And I love you as well.
It's
and
nice
I
to be
love all
loved
of
in
you.
return.
It's so nice to have you back. I was cold and lonely last week. The wolves almost attacked me. It was bad. It was like I was in the woods alone.
Listen, so I got an email from one of our listeners that actually, and I haven't shared it with you.
Oh.
But I want you to take a look at the screen here.
Even better.
But it actually says, Sean was lost without you.
The word lost, see?
It actually, and then it goes on, read, it actually goes on to say how sad you sounded during certain parts of the show.
I did.
And I listened, and you did a great job. Look, but you sounded so sad during a couple times. Like you were waiting for a response, and there was none to be had.
Well, you know, it was one of those things.
And I know what was happening because I was with you in spirit, so my spirit was probably talking some madness into your ear, but it wasn't into a microphone, so nobody else heard.
Well, you know, and I talked about this, and I think I talked about this. With Sacco last week. Is you get that weird symbiotic relationship in certain things that you do. When you work with the same person, you guys do the same thing over and over and over again. So there are times where I'm reading whatever notes I have, or I'm looking at Sacco for cues or whatever. I'll stop. I'll say something. and kind of
expect a response
over, and there's nobody there, so I have to go back to Sacco. And Sacco's mic is off most of the time, so he'd have to scramble to get the mic and be like, yeah, I agree. Next. So it's just a little weird. That's all I'm saying.
Listen, you missed me. And I missed you. So it's okay. We're practically married. This is a partnership, right? This is a 3-way partnership.
This is.
If we were in Utah, this would be normal. No offense to our people
Just
in Utah.
so you know, Jason Miller from the chat room did say that he missed you last week, and he's glad that you're back.
I missed everybody as well. I was actually on assignment down in his neck of the woods. Ish.
Yes, you were ish.
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 Let me say this, and I say this every time I come back. I have a problem. Listen, if you're overweight, that's okay. Right? I love you. It's fine. Look, we're in America free. I don't care, right? It's your personal choice, medical, whatever it is. I don't care. But don't frickin' use it to get a rascal and then claim you're disabled to get in front of the lines at Disneyland. And then sink the frickin' boat on Pirates of the Caribbean.
You know what?
Am I wrong? I say this whenever I come back on the air because it is such a pet peeve of mine. And how Disneyland allows these shenanigans.
It's one of those things, too. And I'm not a small person.
No, but you don't get a hover around
right.
and go to the front of the lines and then make all the children cry.
Right. And that's the thing, too, is,
I literally watched people pull up in their little rascal or hover around, whatever the hell they had, stand up,
jump right out of the chair,
stretch, bend over, touch their toes, which I don't even think I could freaking do anymore, right?
Tie their shoes,
do some jumping jacks to limber up, and then jump on into the boat unassisted.
And then parkour run style right to the boat.
And so me, right, I'm like, really, fatty? You're disabled?
You say that to me.
No, but you're not. You don't go around. You don't use that to get over, right? And my favorite was the individual. There was an individual who had a flat-billed hat on backwards and to the side, who looked to be in perfect health, who was going around on one of these things, going to the front of rides on lines, and then I literally saw this person get off a ride, jump up and down, say, "That was awesome," or something to that effect,
and jump back into his
hover round and take off.
Well, and it's one of those things.
With his Beats for Dre or whatever he had on. I was like, oh, are you kidding me right now?
Who's now in the California State Museum, Dr.
Right,
Dre,
that's awesome because he invented headphones, apparently. Did he invent headphones?
No, just that particular brand.
Oh, hey, we should be in there for SHR.
Yeah, I agree. We made this particular brand. It's one of those things where, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago when we talked about people who utilize the disability system for personal gain and not because they're truly disabled.
Right.
And this is definitely one of those times that I get aggravated by that. And listen, nobody's going to say anything about the kid who maybe is double amputee, who wheels up and then gets helped into the ride and goes for the ride. Nobody, because that's fine. Everyone gets that. You totally get that.
But on that note, I have to say something. I apologize for interrupting you, but I just thought of something, and I actually wanted to give props out to our vets. There was a vet that I was behind in line. And I assume he was a vet because he had the Molly Gear backpack and the patch, the low visibility, flag patch and an army hat on. So I'm just assuming, right?
Right.
But he
Either
literally
that or he's a snappy dresser.
Right. He literally had like his leg was in a cast and he was on crutches, and he could have very easily rented a wheelchair and gone to the front of the line, standing in lines, and he didn't.
Stepped up the whole way.
Yes, and I was very impressed by that. So it just goes to show you again, our veterans, God bless you.
And I watch it too.
But it's personal integrity, not only from a professional point of view, but obviously that translates into that gentleman's personal life as well. So, so thank you for that.
And that's always one of those things too, where if that's me, I offer to let him go in front of me. Like
well,
said,
nobody
behind
did.
Him in line.
Right.
Nobody did. But anytime that I perceive a veteran, somebody who served our country, I always try to make that effort.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm in a coffee shop and there's somebody in full uniform behind me or something, I'll buy him coffee.
Right.
Hey, thank you. It's the least I can do. And most of them are very humble about it. And, I know some of them actually get aggravated with it, not because they think it's rude, but because they don't.
They don't think they deserve it.
They don't think they deserve it.
Look, I've been
They're
with you.
overly humble.
I've been with you when you have bought coffee for a police officer that was behind us in line.
Yeah.
And then I remember And then I remember you got his name and said, I'm going to file a complaint because I know he's not allowed to take gratuities.
Yeah, I really showed him.
And I said, yeah.
Parking
douchebag.
ticket my ass.
Oh, it was a CHP guy, right? Actually, I think it was.
I think it was.
That's great. Speed this.
Gotcha.
I'm going on to your internal affairs website. I'm pretty sure you couldn't have accepted that.
Can I have your name, please, sir? No, I just want to send a thank you letter.
Right.
I am kidding, of course. Before everyone gets into the chat room, gets all up in arms, I would not.
Gets
do
all
that.
uppity. No, he did buy.
I bought him the coffee.
He did buy
right.
this
I
officer the
didn't
coffee.
turn him
yeah.
in.
I've seen you do that a couple times, but yeah, you didn't turn him in. That was just my own little shenaniganry. Is that even a word? Can I say
shenaniganry? Yeah. No, it's all up there with jackassery. It's kind of a big one.
What's this button do right here?
No, don't touch it again. Sackhead Sacco, thank you so much for making this show possible and all your production value.
And for not allowing me access to this button that I really want to push. Listen, when you guys tell me, listen, don't push this button, it's at your queue. It's at your queue, right? It's at my station.
Well, yeah.
What am I going to do? I want to push the stinking button.
Well, you know what's funny is
Thank you, Sacco, for noticing my self-censor.
one of these times,
I kind of just
that
wonder.
button's going to release like a thing of cold water
Look,
from above you.
I have an internal bet with myself that this button does absolutely nothing. But you guys were so adamant about me not pushing it that I almost wonder if it does do something. Right? But this is almost like that button that don't push this. You say that you're like your 4-year-old, right? Hey, don't push this. And
whatever
knowing
you do-
they're going to push it.
Whatever you do, don't touch this. No
Right.
matter what. It doesn't matter.
Right, and you guys said it. Each of you said it independent of each other, and pointed it out to me specifically. We might need to put a picture of this button up on Twitter. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, when it's on a power strip, Clint, and it's bright red, and you like, hey, what does this button do?
Why do you put it on my desk, though?
It's.
I mean, it had a Post-it note. Clint, don't touch.
We have that.
You guys each pointed it out to me.
What most people don't realize is we have those Post-it notes everywhere in the studio.
Right, even
You're
on the
literally
toilet handle,
allowed
which
to
is a
touch
little
your
ridiculous.
Computer, your microphone, your headphones, and the door. That's it.
That's it. And my phone.
Oh man! So
By the way, I have a sign, and I forgot to bring it in, but I have it for the studio, and my brother got it for me.
Oh.
Got it for us specifically. But what it says, it's got the red circle with a gun picture in it, not a line through it, just the red circle, and it says something to the effect of all firearms are required. Please keep them holstered unless the need arises, and then maintain accuracy.
well, yeah. Most important thing is
Something to
maintaining
that effect.
accuracy.
Great sign. So we need it up here on. I'm thinking on the exterior door of the studio. Why are you laughing? That wasn't a joke.
No, I want to get more copies made of it. Actually,
Okay. It's a metal sign. He got it for me. That's great, right? No? Okay. I'm an asshole.
when I didn't say anything. And
that's the problem.
I'm following
Sean,
the news,
and that's
right
the
now.
problem.
Well,
you don't pay attention to me. We don't talk anymore. You're more interested in the screen than you are in having a dialogue with me.
I am covering news. I am making sure that we're all ready to go. I know that we have so much to talk about. You being off last week, I know you're aching to get into topics because
Yeah, why do you think I've been jabber-John? Listen, I know we still have 30 seconds left in the opening general jackassery.
No, we
Never
don't.
mind, we don't. It just
clicked. We're good to go.
That 53 looked like a 33 to me.
On to segment number 2.
Listen, so Hans, and for those of you that don't recall, Jonathan Gruber, we named him Hans from Die Hard. We could also call him Massengill,
Good point.
right? Or Summer's Eve,
Summer's Eve, right?
because he is a tremendous douche, in my opinion.
Yeah, huge.
Huge. Well, I don't know how tall he is.
I think he's pretty tall.
Is he really?
Yeah.
So he may be a huge douche, in my opinion. Right? Like, or an enema. Is he an enema? No, because he doesn't really clean the mess out, right?
He impacts it.
He impacts it. So he's like an MRE. Just a big lead, like a neutron star.
Yes,
Just
exactly.
a dense. Even the smart humor.
I know, we're really bringing it.
We are, right? I know. Check it
The
out.
scientists must be psyched.
I know. There must be like, oh, neutron stars are really, really dense. And
Wow,
a tablespoon
how
would
did he
weigh
know
more
that?
than... Gosh. So...
Somebody watches Sesame Street.
It was 3, 2, 1, contact.
Oh, at least a lot.
Go with the theme song.
3, 2, 1, contact.
Something like
is
that.
the
So-
answer. Why everything happens.
I can't believe you knew it.
Hell yeah, baby. Saturday morning cartoons. Conjunction, junction. What's your function? Remember that one?
I do. What about, okay, Great Space Coaster.
Oh, no, I can't.
All right, you are Gary Gnu.
There's no... The good GNU, all the there's no
GNUs is good GNUs with
without
Gary
GNU.
Gnu.
Bam.
Okay, so who's our Gary
Gnu.
Gnu? No, Jason, I love you. You may have to be Gary Gnu.
That's his. Is that his in-studio nickname?
Gary,
Gary. I like that one.
you like it?
Ken brought up a really good one. I'm just a Bill. That was another great one. And I'm sitting
He's
here
not-
on Capitol Hill.
I remember that one too. Yeah, way to bring it back to
man.
politics. Thanks for screwing up my fun, Ken.
No, we were just having fun, and now it's back to politics.
I know. Yeah. Hey, thanks. So
I just want to know, because we do have a younger age group, how many of them are out there Googling all these songs right now? And
Oh,
the Great
yeah.
Space Coaster.
yeah, and how
all
many
of
are
that.
downloading them to their iTunes?
Oh, wow, I love these songs.
These songs are great.
You're going to see a whole bunch of hipsters in Starbucks this week, conservative hipsters. Conjunction, junction, what's your function? Oh, man. So let's go back to Hans Gruber.
So Hans is going to testify in front of the House Oversight Committee next month in
that's
December.
craziness.
Yeah. That's all I have.
Well, you
No,
know,
that's it. There's nothing more to talk about. No, is he going to be the bad guy? ISA issued a written statement.
Mm-hmm.
And what it said is, quote, Jonathan Gruber, one of Obamacare's chief architects, publicly lauded the lack of transparency that was necessary to pass the law and credited, quote, the stupidity of the American voter that allowed the administration to mislead the public. So they're actually going
wow,
to...
something's getting set up with that statement. I don't know if
yeah.
they'll follow it through, but he's going to be defiant.
And that's kind of my question here. So, and I want to know what our listeners think in the chat. If you could go on chat roll,
okay.
Is he going to take the fifth? I'm going to say no because he's such a tremendous self-absorbed
Well, and
douchebag that he's going to think he's smarter than the committee and try and talk
and
his
if he
way out
takes
of
the
it.
fifth, that means they'll essentially refer back to the statements that he's willingly made in public about
Right.
it and utilize that. So I don't think he'll take the fifth because I think he'll want to build a defense because he knows the train may be on the track.
Yes. Is he pulling it?
No,
Different
no.
story.
No.
No. Is he getting railroaded? Is that what your insinuation is?
No.
Hey, good job. Yeah, now MSNBC is going to come back on and say even a conservative show thinks he's getting railroaded. Listen to this sound clip from Sackhead Sean. The train is on the track. And that's all they're going to say.
No, it didn't sum it up. He's not getting railroaded. He's the one who did the railroad.
Yeah, so I'm curious as to what he's going to say or how he's going to spin it. I really believe that he is going to think that he's smarter than the committee and try and talk circles around the committee.
Mm-hmm. And Ag agrees with you. He came right out. He said he'll try to lord his supposed intellect over the committee.
Yeah.
And just sit there and, like you said, kind of just be defiant and kind of being a snickered. Ken says he's going to plead the fifth and do the conjunction junction choo choo.
I don't think he'll plead the fifth because he wouldn't have agreed to testify.
No, right. Well, I almost wonder if he didn't agree to testify before he got called in, because if he's trying to maintain image, especially for the administration,
he is losing jobs.
Yes. Well, but he's also now he's going to get into defense mode for the administration because that's who pulls the strings. So what he's going to do is before he gets subpoenaed in order to testify, he's going to willingly do it. And it kind of puts his ability to have the terms in there, too. Because now, if he's ordered to, then you could say he's a hostile witness, and you could go down that road. Hey, he's not answering questions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if he goes in there willingly, well, now it's a little bit different because, hey, I'm here on my own accord.
Right. So I have a matchup. You ready? Hans versus Lois.
Ooh.
Lerner.
I'm going to go with Lois.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I think Lois would stab herself if somebody paid her enough. I think she is just the face of evil. I really do. I think Gruber's conceited, and I think that he gets his rocks off duping an entire nation and being that little money nerd where he's like, he can sit.
Obama has a history of hiring those guys, right?
Right. So I think he can sit.
Like Cass Sunstein. He's very Cass Sunstein-esque.
Yeah, he's uber Cass Sunstein. And you look at what he did, and his statements essentially are right out of the book Nudge. You don't tell him it's this, you tell him it's this, and just kind of lean him that way a little bit, and then you keep going. So his approach to this was very much Cass Sunstein Nudge approach. But I think that she is like evil. Because he
like Hitler evil?
I don't know. I'm not going to make that comparison. That's a stupid comparison.
Okay, like ex-wife? No offense.
Yes.
To anybody.
Oh,
evil?
yes. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. No, I think it's worse than that.
Okay.
I think it's like Carrie evil.
Oh.
Yeah. Like, she was somebody made fun of her to the point that she was just pushed. Like I said, I think he is a little nerd that sits in the back and likes to get even with everyone that ever bullied him by changing grades. In this case, it happened to be our economy and the six
and liberty and
healthcare
and all that.
But I really think that was the approach that was taken. I think if it was up to her, conservatives would be in a prison camp. I really believe that. Like, I think she's like
so Hitler-esque, Stalin-esque.
Yeah, more Stalin-esque. I think more Stalin-esque, but just an
Communist.
evil human being.
Communist.
I think she's just an evil human being. I really believe that.
Okay. And you don't. That's your personal opinion. This is an opinion show.
Well, yeah, doy. What else would it be? What's your opinion, Sacco? Sacco doesn't
have an opinion.
He's not the best color man in the business for nothing, folks.
He's not the best what?
Color man.
You can't.
Sports, no. Now, before you...
Now, hang on a second, because I heard something different. I'm not going down any road.
Listen,
you clarified it's done.
Before you burn down the town, Ferguson, relax.
Why do you feel the need to explain?
Before you burn down the town, Ferguson,
why
relax.
do you feel the need to explain? I heard one thing. You clarified. Let's move on.
That's so not like you.
Listen. You felt the need to overly explain yourself, so obviously your intention was there. Obviously your intention was there, and I don't want to.
This is exactly why we need a webcam.
I don't want to expose our audience.
That way, everybody can see the look on your face when I said that. And honestly, it was like a dog or a piece of food fell onto the floor. The one ear went up, and then the other ear, and you just like jumped up. You were like, "Hey, I could bust his Aggies over this." Here we go.
Listen, I don't appreciate that, okay? But and with this nose, I got the sense of it too.
I know,
I
right?
can smell out anything.
Dude. You asked me about the piece of jerky I had in my pocket from 2 weeks ago.
Right, remember that? And you're like, I just haven't washed these pants.
Yeah. So, it's one of those...
Ken, I apologize for my partner.
I think that...
I love this show.
I think Hans is just going to be a complete weasel. I don't think he's going to have the audacity to stand up and be like, hey, you know what? If I did something wrong, prosecute me and walk out. I don't think he's going to be like that. I think he's going to be well, what you don't understand, Senator, is that blah, 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 and then blah, 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 blah. It just, no, I'm sorry, Representative. That is not correct. You don't know what you're talking about. Blah, blah, blah. Do you have a degree from MIT in economics? No. What I meant, I think he's going to be a jerk like that. So that's my opinion. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's going to come in and think he's smarter than Congress and try and talk circles around them. I would like to see, why can't we have like an Acme cartoon? If we lived in a world like Roger Rabbit, where there was some cartoon things and some real people, and we could drop a cartoon anvil on his head, Right? Offer him tea and ask him how many lumps he wanted.
I don't know, 3 or 4. Ken,
But yeah, I think what'd he say?
a poll taken on how many of the offended people that I believe on my comment were marchers. This was him. 60% were Negroes, 30% were colored, and 10% were Afro-Americans. Man, I lose no matter what. How do you think he's going to approach this?
Who, Ken?
No, I know how Ken's going to approach it. How do you think that Hans is going to take this?
No, exactly like we said. I think he's just going to come in there and try and talk circles and think that he's smarter than everybody in the room. What I don't know what law he has broken, if any. And I don't know if his position, if he had to take an oath. Does that make sense?
Right.
Because I know some public employees, they do have to sign like oaths of allegiance, whatnot.
Yes.
Saying, hey, you're going to uphold the Constitution. So I'm wondering if he signed anything like that, if there's something they could go after him for. And I don't know. I don't want to speak from a position of ignorance. I do that enough already.
It's half the show.
It's most of the show, Sean, and I don't appreciate you pointing that out to me and my disability. What are you doing over there? Dude, your fingers are like flying over that keyboard.
Well, because somebody has to interact with the staff, with our friends in the room. Chat.
You won't even allow me to turn my monitor on. I'm pretty sure that's what that button is that you don't want me to push.
Egg said he doesn't know. Egg doesn't believe he was in one of the positions that you have to take
Oath of Allegiance.
the oath of allegiance, and I don't think so either. I want to say, and he's right. I want to say he was more of a consultant during this. I don't think he was a full-time, quote-unquote, government employee.
So and follow my logic on this. If he was a consultant and he is purposefully manipulating or purposefully showing our elected officials who do take an oath how to manipulate, and then they voluntarily went along with said manipulation, such as Pistol Grip Pelosi herself, we have to pass the bill to see what's in it. Is Congress going to go after them?
No.
I don't think they will, because that's one of their own, right?
No.
Which is a shame.
I don't think they will. I don't think they will go after. They should. They should at least try to investigate it and see what's going on.
I want to
But I don't
see
think
somebody
they will.
on the committee stand up and say, "Sir, you are a tremendous douchebag. You are the biggest douchebag that has ever walked."
I would love
through
to see
these
Gowdy
floors."
just go.
And Gowdy's not going to be there though. It's ISA.
Oh,
It's not Benghazi.
which committee was it?
It's not Benghazi.
But
it's
is
the
it
House
the
Oversight.
Oversight? Isn't Gowdy on oversight?
I don't know. ISA chairs it.
I think Gowdy's on oversight.
Is he?
Yeah, Google that. But wouldn't it be great if he is? I'm pretty sure he is. But if he is, if he was just like, so, Mr. Massengill, I want you to answer one. I'm sorry, I have you down as Gruber. No former questions, douche. You know, that was a damn good Gowdy impression, was it?
That
not?
would be. How great would that be? I want to see somebody with the stones to say that.
First of all, was that not a good Gowdy impression?
It was. I said
Thank
it
you.
was.
I just want that to be done. I want that to be accepted, that I had a really good Gowdy impression.
You had a tremendous.
Hey, before we move on into break, we dodged a bullet.
We did.
Quite
What
literally.
kind of bullet?
And thank you to Jason, our news director, for throwing this to me. 'Cause I missed
Trey
it.
Gowdy is
Yeah, I thought he was.
on the House Oversight Committee. Would
Apparently,
you like to know who else?
And I knew I was right. Jason threw this at me, our news director. I didn't hear about this. Do you know Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg was rushed to the ER last night at 81 years old?
Was what?
Rushed to the ER last evening.
No, I did not.
So she was rushed to the ER, and apparently she had a heart condition while working out. She passed out, and she's going to have to get a stent put in. And Jason actually, I think, nailed it. She may have done us a solid, because if she went, Holder could have been next.
He would have had to been confirmed.
Right. But if it was an emergency and they pushed it through right now, right? I mean, seriously. So,
Well, she's 81 years
81
old.
years of age.
right?
Yeah, she's no spring chicken.
She
She's
kinda
not
looks
even
like
a
a
fall
chicken.
chicken. She's like a late summer chick. I mean,
You can't call her a chick.
chicken.
You said chick.
I meant chicken. So thank goodness.
I'm looking at a picture of her, and poor dear. I mean, I pray. I do. We hope.
I hope
we
she's all right.
We
I
disagree
do.
with some of her decisions,
But I don't wish ill upon her.
I don't wish ill upon her at all. So hey, I will. Yes, I pray for her recovery. However, I am looking at a picture, and she does kind of look like
Yeah.
a hen.
Yeah. No,
And I'm not trying to say that to be mean,
No,
but it's actually kind of
she's one of the ones too.
funny.
Like
She was nominated by Carter,
Yeah. Yes.
right? To
Yes.
the District of Columbia circuit,
It-
and then Bill Clinton
Appointed her.
Appointed her in
Or
93.
nominated her.
in '93.
Yeah. And it was one of those things. She has. It's been a rough last 5 years. Let's just say that. But I do wish her well. She's a Supreme Court justice, and as much as we may agree or disagree with the Supreme Court,
Or her in particular.
right?
Right.
She did get to that position. She earned that position, and so we wish her well. And honestly, because of the alternative right now, especially through January, we wish her well.
I don't think anybody could get confirmed. I really don't. There is no way that anybody would get confirmed right now.
You know what I can confirm? We're up against a break.
Ooh.
So
We're
we're going
past
to be
a
back
break.
here. In
Hey,
3
you know what?
minutes.
If somebody would have closed the door on the segment.
Yeah, I know if somebody was doing his job,
Oh, see, and there's Sacco. That's how good of a guy Sacco is. Sacco's like, you guys were talking about somebody who might die. I wasn't going to interrupt that.
Ken said he's pretty sure she was nominated by John Jay.
No. I think she was married to John Jay.
We're going to be back in 3 here at the Sackheads Radio Show. She was a Wilson nominee.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean,
Dude, I'm not saying cow for the stupid pro.
Sackhead Clint,
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on The Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to the Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
You know, if our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border, we have to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to The Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Okay, so we have a question for our chat room, folks. We were having a discussion at break, and what is the better...
I love how our discussions always revolve around the show.
They do. What is a better baseball movie? Major League or Bull Durham?
Mm-hmm.
And we have our answers.
We do.
I have mine, and you have yours, and I want to know what the chat room is saying.
We'll give it open for a couple minutes on that, and we'll come back to you.
The better baseball movie, Bull Durham or Major League.
That's a
Number
good...
one, the first Major League.
The original, right.
Because they're different.
Don't worry about 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah. And 17. They're different, but they're both excellent movies in their own right.
Right. Oh, no, absolutely. Without going too far into it, as we said before, I believe Bull Durham was more close to AAA real-life baseball. You know, obviously there was some drama thrown into it because it's a movie. And Major League was
and it's hilarious.
And it's hilarious. But Major League was an outright comedy that was hilarious. So
nope. Sean votes Major League.
For the comedy. Strictly for the comedy.
I'm voting Bull Durham for the same reason. I think...
Sacco's never seen either one.
Sacco, you can't vote and play that sound effect because you haven't seen either one.
Because both movies came out before the year 2000, so he hasn't been able to see
Before
it.
the year 2004.
Ken's going Major League. I think Egg is away. I don't know. Kel, have you ever seen it? Like, come on, let me know. Jump in there. Major League or Bull Durham, which one was the better movie? So, candlesticks make a nice gift.
Right. Why is he calling me mean? I'm the one with the
throws in
Porsche.
Field of Dreams. Unfortunately, he fails.
Yeah.
Because
that was not one of the
choices.
Although I am going to claim a Bull Durham vote by proxy because Kevin Costner.
Okay, I'll give you that. I'll
Thank
give
you.
Costner. And Costner's a true baseball fan.
Thank you. And Costner was also in Bull Durham.
Bull Durham, he
therefore,
was.
Yeah, therefore we'll take Ag as a Bull Durham vote.
Kel's going Bull Durham as well.
Yes, because Kel has taste.
I think that's 3-2.
Yeah.
And we'll see if any more roll in. So anyhow.
And, I mean, you're a Boston fan, so.
I am a Boston fan.
Yeah, so why would you like a movie about the Indians?
Oh, because
I mean the Cleveland Native Americans.
It's the American
League. Cleveland.
League.
What can we call? League. You know what would be awesome? I challenge the Cleveland Indian organization to change their name to the Cleveland Redskins, just to show solidarity with the Washington football team.
That's awesome,
right? Or change your mascot to a guy with a dot on his forehead.
Or as Joe Biden might say, they should change their name to the Cleveland 7-Elevens.
Right. I think that's a brilliant idea. We should start a campaign and pitch it to the Cleveland Baseball Organization.
Dude, I think that's a brilliant idea. Oh,
God,
man.
How do I think of this stuff?
How do you think of this stuff? See, and Jason's going with Angels in the outfield strictly because it's Angels and he's a huge Angels fan. So,
but here's the problem with the Angels organization.
Oh no, don't
the
start.
color. Okay, so I was down. I was down in Anaheim.
You were
right, and I actually saw a guy. He had his kids and he seemed like a good dude. And we were kind of BS. And I go, hey, Mike, and one of my kids did ask. He said, hey, my kid wants to know why the color A on your hat is the wrong color. He wants to know why it's not green and gold. And the guy looked shocked, and then he started laughing. It was hilarious.
Jason would like to stipulate that the original version of Angels in the Outfield, the black and white version, I'll give him that because that one was much better. The original one was
than the Danny Glover version.
Yes. The original was far better. So, all right.
Hey, good. That's
Ken thinks they should start a team, the South Dakota Casino Hustlers. Oh boy! All right, we got to go into.
Can you call it? And the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah,
they should call it the Kansas City CEOs or the Kansas City people in charge, and it shouldn't be Arrowhead Stadium anymore.
No, absolutely.
Because number one, that's racist, and number two, it's a weapon.
It's a racist weapon.
Right. And can you say the term tip of the spear anymore? Ken?
Nope, not at all.
Is that racist?
Egg says that it should be the Kansas City tribal leaders.
Kansas City tribal leaders. Okay.
Oh,
you have a segment to get to. Will you introduce it already?
Yeah, we're going to run
It's in
out of
green,
time.
which means it's your turn.
So the title of this segment is This Town is on Fire.
Hang on. You blew it.
What?
The title of the segment is actually
Ferguson, Missouri. This town is on fire.
And that's exactly as it's written.
How did I become the default singer on this show? That's horrible.
Because
I'm terrible.
Are you kidding me? Hang on a second. Let me tell you about karaoke night the last time we went out drinking with Sean.
Dude, I did both parts of Paradise by the Dashboard Lights.
I couldn't believe you did both parts of that Grease song. You did John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, which was awesome. See?
Honey. I know a lot of songs. I just can't sing Where the Hill of Beans, brother. So, by now, if you don't know what has happened in Ferguson, Missouri the last 2 days,
the town's on fire. Next segment.
Yeah, you literally haven't turned on anything. I honestly think that I have one of those little independent casino games that you could play blackjack on and stuff. I got a flash on that. That something was going on in Ferguson.
You play roulette.
I do play roulette mostly.
You don't play
I couldn't
blackjack?
find a good roulette one. I couldn't find a good roulette one. So, as we all know by now, Officer Darren Wilson was not indicted based on the evidence that was presented to the grand jury. He has actually released an interview since then that he did with CNN. The New York Times, I believe it was nice enough to release his address where he lives with his wife and his children.
Well, the New York Times, they said him and they named his wife, and they didn't give the exact address, but they did say the name of the street, the name of the town.
And then Don Lemon went and stood out in front of it and pointed at it and said, "This may or may not be Officer Wilson's house."
And then had a photograph. And they did print a retraction, and the retraction was they took the photograph out.
Yeah. Unbelievable. So it was released at 6 o'clock on the Pacific, 9 o'clock East, 8 in Central Time.
PM.
It is PM, not AM. And the reason that they gave the prosecutor gave is that he wanted to make sure schools were out because they knew there were going to be issues. They wanted to make sure people were through the commute and that there was few people on the streets as possible. Well, what you did is made sure that everyone had free time to show up in the streets for the release.
Right.
He went on this 20-minute preamble as to the difficulty that was presented to the jurors. And he really, first of all, a couple different things about this. 8 hours before it was released, the DA's office said that they want to release all the evidence and testimony immediately to the public. So 8 hours before this, I said, well, I know what decision they came to because now they're trying to appease people and want that information to get out right away. So then we got close to it and they announced it. He went on this bizarre kind of, and listen, I don't like this DA because he punted on this. And if you read through the evidence, and I haven't gotten through the entire package yet, but from what I knew beforehand and then things that came to light that during the testimony, there was no way this ever should have even came close to being on a grand jury. It never should have happened.
Right.
So he punted and he failed because he didn't want to be the guy who stood in front of everybody and said, you know what, there's no criminal charges here. Michael Brown was the aggressor. The officer feared for his life. We have evidence that he came at him 2 separate times. Mm-hmm. We have X, Y, and Z. So He didn't do that. He said, "Oh, we're going to put it in front of a grand jury," because Eric Holder showed up and said, "Oh, well, I'd really like it if you could put it in front of a grand jury, and we're going to do our own independent." It was just a boob because he's a boob. So he throws it to the grand jury. Well, the grand jury, and I believe they haven't even released, at least my last check, they hadn't even released male-female breakdown, but they said it was, I think it was 8 and 4. I think it was 8 white people and 4 black people that were on it. Or
it was a mixed.
It was a mixed.
Mixed jury.
Grand
pool.
jury, and they met X amount of times and heard X amount of testimony, so on and so forth. So they released it, and they said that they did not come back with an indictment. They had 5 different options, everything from murder 1, as they call it, Missouri, all the way down to involuntary manslaughter. And then at 8 o'clock at night, when
they didn't even indict on the involuntary.
Yes.
I mean, nothing.
There was nothing there.
Nothing.
And
there.
that shows you, and I always call back to this case to the officer, Johann Messerly. He was the BART officer that shot a young man. And they indicted him on involuntary, and he was convicted.
No, they indicted him on murder.
Murder.
They convicted him on involuntary
manslaughter.
Which involuntary, if you watch the video, I mean, it clearly was it was a tragedy.
It was a training
right?
issue.
It
was a systemic training issue.
It was
where
so I could see an involuntary
because California
there.
made after that the state of California did a whole change on it because just before that. There was a deputy, I think, in a couple counties away. I want to say it was Santa Clara County, where it was a female deputy who had a prisoner in the back of her car, and he went crazy. And it was the same thing. She went to open the car to restrain him. He kicked her. He started to get out of the car. She went to pull her taser, much like Messerly, and ended up shooting him accidentally.
And I think at that time, the law enforcement was carrying the tasers as the same side
there
of the gun,
this,
right? So it wasn't like a different draw or anything to it. It's very similar.
And anyone who shoots, you go to muscle memory in strained situations, stressful situations.
Yes.
So that's what caused that. So I go back to Messerly, and that was on pure video, and anyone who watched that, in my opinion, could obviously see his reaction immediately. His hands went to the head. You could see his whole body sump. He was shocked.
He said, "Oh, shit," I think. He mouthed it.
Yeah, he knew immediately it was not intentional. And this situation is totally different. There is and we found out he did know the description of the strong arm robbery that took place a few minutes earlier.
Yes.
He was in the area because he was responding to a medical call for a young child that wasn't breathing, like a 2-year-old, and he was leaving that call. So it wasn't like he was just trolling around looking for black kids to shoot, as the media, by the way, I'm going to go off on the media in a little bit too, but as the media would have you believe.
Even Fox still says when a white officer shot an unarmed black teen. Still in the coverage. Why is that language in your coverage?
Because it
still?
sells, and that's where I have my problem with Fox. And, so you go on, and then it says that, he saw the suspects, he kind of positioned his vehicle, or he drove away, and he came back and positioned his vehicle, he called it his dispatch for other units, made contact with him. His initial contact with him, as his friend who witnessed it said, was like a father talking to his son. They were walking down the middle of the street, and he said, "Hey, kids, you're going to get up on the sidewalk, you're going to get hurt."
Because it's an immediate safety issue.
It was an immediate safety issue.
So he's got to take action.
But he did it, and like the kid said, like a father talking to his son, "Hey, you're going to get hurt if you do this. You need to go." There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. No, there's not.
He came back, positioned his vehicle, called out to them. Brown immediately rushed the vehicle, started hitting him while he was still inside the vehicle. We know now the first shot was inside the vehicle. Potentially the second or third. We're not 100%. I believe that he testified that the first 2 or 3 shots were inside and then he got out. It now brings us over to that video of the 2 guys that didn't know their audio was being recorded. There was a cell phone that was videotaping Michael Brown's body. 2 guys off to the side that explained it exactly now, essentially as it happened. The kid backed up. The cop got out of the car with his gun drawn, said, "Get on the ground." The kid reached under his shirt, took a couple hard steps. The officer retreated, fired again, retreated again, and fired again. Eventually, Brown fell, and we know the rest is history. So Missouri is very clear about their self-defense law. You don't have to be a peace officer. It applies to everybody. Mm-hmm. It has to do with who's the aggressor and if the person believed that their life was in immediate danger.
Which this officer already obviously
he
believed.
Did.
And
he
the guy was
at
going
one
for his
point-
gun.
Yep. And he said at one point, I felt as if I took another blow to the head like that, I would lose consciousness. He also said at one point that he's like the size of this kid. And Officer Wilson's not
And
a
he's
tall
not a
guy.
kid. He's like 18, right?
Right.
So he's a man.
Right. He is a man. But he said he was so big, I felt like a kid holding on to Hulk Hogan. Like the kid was just that big. And Darren Wilson's not a big guy. So the evidence that I've read through, and we talked about this before, but there never should have gone to grand jury. Not even kind of. It should have been immediate. And this is where I have a problem with the county and us appeasing the masses to try to get things, smooth things over. If they had come out, did the investigation, even if it was a week, 2 weeks, however long you need, you do the autopsy, you do victim statements. By the way, there's 5 witnesses that I believe if they are not indicted for perjury immediately, then the county is failing miserably.
They're not going to. Are you kidding
They're
me?
not going
There
to.
is no way they're going to indict anybody for perjury.
But they needed to, and it makes me sick.
Yes.
So
you know what, Officer Wilson, he's a peace officer. He has probable cause to arrest. He should go
right now,
arrest
all
them for
5 of them.
perjury.
All 5 of them.
Yep.
And there's a 6th one that's borderline.
The department should assign an officer based on probable cause to issue a complaint or write a report, whatever it is they do, to get charges filed and let the DA kick those perjury charges.
Yeah, I agree with you, and force the DA's hand, because here's the problem: by doing this, if they did a 2-week investigation, 3-week investigation, hey, we don't know until we know everything. There was so many conflicting witnesses. There were so many witnesses that changed their story 2, 3, 4 times, even under oath during the indictment ceremony, the grand jury. But if they did the 3-week investigation, came back and said, hey, you know what, we're not charging, you would have had civil unrest. People would have been upset for a day or two, right? They would have, we're pissed.
People were going to riot if no charges were filed anyway.
But I believe the group would have been smaller, because here's what you did. You gave all the race pimps, race baiters, the people that want to absolutely make their name out of this poor kid. And I'll say,
and you have other groups attaching themselves now.
You had the anarchists showing up.
The
You had the communists showing up. You had a lot of people show up into this. There was some communist reporter that asked the governor, well, if there's no indictment, isn't that essentially saying that it's okay for the police to kill black kids? He asked that at the press conference as the Governor Nixon was talking about the safety precautions they were taking with the National Guard. He was in the press pool and asked that question. On and on and on. But you would have had maybe 2 or 3 days of aggravation. You wouldn't have had 4 months of them building their machine through social media. And let's face it, 10% of the people there are truly outraged by the decision. The other 90% of there are just there to take advantage of the situation. Right. I feel for his family. I think his stepfather made some horrible statements the other night. I feel for the kid's family as I would for anybody's family who loses a son. It doesn't matter how you lose it. And just as if, or the exact same token, I feel for the family of Officer Wilson. I feel for his family. I feel for the families of everybody in the Ferguson Police Department, because you know what? Those of folks haven't done anything wrong. In this situation, they really tried to
look.
They were turned into the goat of a situation.
These
that
protesters
they were not wrong.
do not care one bit about the community that they're pretending to be outraged about. Not one. How many businesses have been destroyed?
Oh,
what do you think the chances of that community rebuilding are?
And if I was
what the cost to rebuild? Are you kidding me? Let's look at that for a moment. These businesses are going to get insurance payouts, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is insurance going to write another policy for those businesses into there? Or if they do, what are those premiums going to be?
Huge.
They just killed
for a small business.
They killed the economy of that town. We got something coming in?
Yeah, just as the riots in L.A. apparently are taking a pretty dark turn, where they apparently try to storm the Staples Center.
Is there an event there?
The L.A. Lakers game. They tried to force their way in. The police were able to corral them. Yeah, they were going to upset an L.A. Lakers game.
Oh, I thought they were just going to go watch.
That would be awesome.
Right?
I'd give them credit if they like stormed in. They'd be like, no, I just want to see.
No, we just want to see the score.
Because that would be funny. LAPD was able to surround them all, and
like 3 of them.
No, there was a couple hundred, and they've all been taken into custody. But this is all part of the Ferguson protest. It continues.
It's an excuse for people to go out and act like asses.
Poor behavior. Absolutely poor behavior.
Honestly, that's all it is.
Yep. And that's however many were trying to get in at that point. But that's the problem with protests nowadays.
And there's people in the media that condone it. Oh, they're just upset. No, they're not. They're asses. They're looking for a reason to go out and act like jackasses.
Yeah.
And this gives them an excuse. They don't care about the case.
Yep.
They didn't know Michael Brown.
Nope.
They
They
don't know the facts of the case.
They didn't even respect the mother's wishes when she said, "Hey, we don't want you guys. We don't want anything.
Right.
We want you to protest and blah 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 blah." And
right.
There's a great video on YouTube, and I found it a couple days ago. I've been able to find it again because it was a video, but it was one of the lead protesters or somebody who organized, and one of the police officers discussing the rules of protesting. Mm-hmm. And the cop and that guy had a great back and forth. Can I do this? No, well, because if you do that, you'll be blocking the street. All right, what if we go over here? What if we?
And they work together.
And they work together.
Yes.
But they were there as legitimate protesters, people that wanted to have their voices heard.
Right.
And I heard people
which we celebrate. We have no issue with.
Right.
We may disagree with your opinion, but hey, you have a right to protest and say what. Awesome.
Yep.
We encouraged you.
As opposed to the idiots who rushed the O'Reilly Auto Parts store.
And you know what? You know they thought that it was Bill O'Reilly's store. Otherwise, they would have left it alone, right? O'Reilly, I've heard of this guy. He's a conservative.
I didn't know he had an auto parts store.
Right.
Blow it up. So now let's look at...
the police also did not have a plan going into this.
No, they did.
Okay.
But it was not the right plan.
Right.
So Nixon calls up the National Guard. Hey, we're going to have the National Guard on standby just in case. 700 troops originally. They're going to protect critical infrastructure.
And they're under state call-up. They're not federal call-up.
Right, they're state. National
this
Guard,
is state
they're state.
Now. Yep.
And they're here to protect critical infrastructure, electrical plants, police stations, fire stations, et cetera, et cetera. They're not going to actively be working the protest. They're going to make sure nobody crosses the line. That's their job.
Right.
Did not see them the first night. What you did see was, I believe, them saying, hey, we're going to be pretty hands-off with this, and as long as you guys don't get out of control, it'll be fine. And because there is the ongoing, the police are being oppressive, and look at all these people from the original protest. Mm-hmm. Oh, they're here with military vehicles and tanks and guns and bombs, and they're going to kill us, blah, 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 blah. So what happened again, just like the indictment, we're going to appease everybody.
And look what happened.
And look what happened.
Yes.
The town went nuts to the point that there were protesters saying, where are the police?
Right.
The same protesters who were saying 6 months ago, the police are here trying to kill us.
Right.
Where are the police? You had people like Van Jones and the CNN idiots who were standing in the middle of the ruckus, who went back and forth from where are the police? Oh, there's too much police. Why are they using tear gas? Oh, my. And then when all of a sudden they started getting surrounded and things got ugly, where are the police? Why aren't the police here? Where are the police? Blah, 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 blah.
Because they're scared now.
Because they're scared.
Yes.
They sent one, I can't remember her name, they sent one female reporter deep into where the protests were. The police held a line on the outside. They pretty much had this wide line, but it was a line on the outside. Inside was just free game. And they had this female reporter inside with her cameraman and a couple bodyguards who was you could tell she was terrified and wasn't smart enough or wasn't allowed to get out of there. And I'm like, that's weird. And Van Jones, Don Lemon, and Chris Cuomo were still close to the police station. Even when they were surrounded and being screwed with, they were still close to the police station. You flashed the next scene, they were in front of the Ferguson police station. And this poor girl's still walking around. I'm like, look at these tough guys. You know what I mean? And I know, hey, listen, I know equality and women's rights and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, here's this tiny little gal and a thing of protesters, and you tough guys who do nothing but flap your gums about how things need to be righted and men need to act like men, especially Van Jones, that scumbag, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, let's send the little girl into the protesters because I ain't going in there.
Right.
And it went on and on and on, and it really, to me, is pathetic.
And my point is, the police didn't have a plan. They didn't have their plan was,
let it happen.
Let it happen.
Yeah.
It was not a good plan to protect life and property.
Right. It was not. 100 gunshots that first night. There was over 100 shots fired, and we don't know who they were fired at in the air or whatever, but it was confirmed over 100 gunshots were fired that evening during the protests.
We're up against a break. When we come
Already?
back, already.
Oh.
Well, we can pick this up on the other side of the break.
All right, we'll pick it up on the other side. I'm sorry. I
No.
just, you know me, I love to get going.
You do. No, it's great.
I have more to say.
You got another
And
hour
I will
to say
here on the
it.
Sackheads Radio Show.
You got
in
another
3.
hour to say it. Why are you looking at me like that? What's this button do?
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean,
Dude, I'm not saying calf for the stupid promo.
Sackhead Clint,
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on The Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to the Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
You know, if our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border and says coordination, we got to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to The Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Hey, welcome back to the
Hey,
Sackheads
welcome
Radio
back
Show.
to this. Oh, you got this one? Okay. I didn't know because we were both sitting down late.
So anyhow, I had no idea how the guy got the sloth to hang like that, but it was kind of impressive.
You know what? And that's, I was thinking about that. I was like, I don't know if I would be able to do that or even get that shot, right? Like, how do you take that picture?
Exactly.
Especially from that angle, right?
Yes, it's insanity.
Oh,
you just
man.
can't do stuff like that.
It was great.
We're back here, obviously. We're talking about Ferguson.
We have an in-studio guest.
We do have an in-studio guest. He's going to be
Where-
quiet.
where are you
because he's
going?
Shy.
T. Hang on, I have something for T.
But I think
he doesn't know it yet.
You know, we threw out a great idea for T, and we're going to see. We're going to see if we can pull this off. T might end up anchoring our after-show show. We might do a 15-minute wrap-up show every week.
It's like an after party, but for big boys. It's an after party on steroids.
Yes, it'll be an after party on steroids. So we're glad he's in the studio with us. So going back to Ferguson, we were talking about planning, and we were talking about the lack thereof. And, the second night, all of a sudden, after, 25 buildings were burnt down, all these stores were put out of business, or at least damaged.
Basically the city.
The city. Cars were burned like crazy. There was one auto lot that had like 15 or 16 cars burned. Every window and every car on that lot was busted out. They burned police cars. They were shooting guns at random. And by the way, folks, they were shooting guns into the crowd and endangering themselves as well. So, that's what they were dealing with. So the second night, all of a sudden they have 1,500 National Guardsmen or more. I think it was 2,200. And the police presence was greatly increased. And the amount of protesters showed up and everything was limited. Because they finally put in the action that they should have put in the first night. Everybody knew what was going to happen. You knew that they were going to be that.
That's why they should have released it first thing in the morning.
Yes. They should have held it for the night, released it. I don't care if they hold it for a few days and hope a snowstorm blows in. But you have to think of the well-being. I'd rather you cancel school and a couple other things.
For a day or two or see what happens.
Amazingly, the next day during the day, there's no protesters anywhere. You couldn't find them.
Right.
You know what? And
they were sleeping.
I'm not going to say protesters. I'm going to say rioters. Because they weren't protesting. They were just rioting.
Criminals. Scallywags.
Scallywags, if you will. And I will.
And I will as well. Which means they all have to have an eye patch and an earring.
I would like to see if any of the leaders or commenters, the stepfather, has criminal charges brought against him for inciting the riot. The stepfather, just after the decision was made, stomping on the hood of a car with a crowd of people around him, yelling, "Burn this MFer down," over and over and over again. And amazingly...
Did they charge him?
They didn't, not yet.
Huh.
Amazingly, things caught fire after he said that.
He was singing a song.
I don't think so.
Oh.
I did not hear... He's not like me. He doesn't have that beautiful tone when he sings.
He wasn't singing that song?
No.
The roof?
The roof is on fire? No, I don't think so.
Huh. I thought maybe that's why he was stomping on the car. Maybe he was... Listen.
We're going to burn
maybe,
this mother out.
Right. Perhaps somebody flicked a cigarette onto the hood of that car. He jumped up, started stomping it out repeatedly, and then the roof caught fire.
And it just kept going.
And he was saying the roof...
How windy was it?
The roof is on fire. I mean, look, I'm just thinking of possible defenses here for the guy. We have to look at all angles.
So,
like the sloth.
Yes, absolutely. You now have a very, very bad combination of...
But how are other mayors and so forth reacting? I'm sure other mayors are being, particularly here in Sacramento, right? I'm sure they're being very supportive and understand how the process works. I got to get the exact
quote from Mayor Johnson of Sacramento. Because
now, is that a smart aleck remark, calling him Mayor Johnson?
No.
Because you didn't say Johnson
No,
head.
it's Kevin Johnson.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you were calling him a
And I'm going to look for it.
That's an anatomy term, penis. I can say penis and not get in trouble. I thought that's what you were calling him.
So now the mayor, who presumably has no more information than we did until after the grand jury decision was released.
Right. And what's his history? He's a former NBA player.
Basketball player.
Right. So he's had a lot of experience.
With law and criminality and process of law, etc. But he's
not saying he's a criminal, but just in that criminal justice field.
I'm obviously disappointed by the grand jury's verdict.
Wait, you are?
No, this is the mayor.
Oh, I didn't know you were quoting him yet. Okay, go ahead.
Quibble and debate about the details of what happened on Ferguson on August 9th. What there is no controversy about the fact that there is an injustice that has been incurred.
You know what? I would be, if I worked for, he's Sacramento mayor, right? If I worked for the Sacramento Police Department, I would be so encouraged by that remark. That is how our mayor. What did the Sacramento police chief say about that? Please tell me he
didn't
responded.
say anything that I can find right now, but the head of the Sacramento Police Department's Police Officer Association said The mayor shouldn't be disappointed. He should be relieved with the grand jury's decision to find that Wilson acted in a heinous fashion. Did not find that Wilson acted in heinous fashion. It is a complete slap to the face in law enforcement throughout the nation.
Good.
Meaning his statements.
Good.
The mayor and the SAC Police Union met to clear the air and sought an apology. I apologize and said if there was anything that was offensive, I take that back. That was not my intention.
Really, jackass? What's your intention?
Right.
What is your intention?
Your intention was to ignite controversy.
What?
It was political gain.
What if that happened in his city?
Right.
Does Ferguson, Missouri have a city attorney? Fortunately, Ferguson is on board with the officer because this officer did nothing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But what if in the city of Sacramento, God forbid, this happens to one of the officers there, and the officer acted completely right, and the district attorney in that county, Sacramento County, declined to file charges, grand jury acquitted, Justice Department, nothing was done. Would that mayor direct his city attorney to file some sort of charges?
I don't know. At this point, it sounds like he would, because he wouldn't be satisfied with the investigation and the grand jury indictment, so then he would just move to Plan B. It sounds to me that this mayor, just like a lot of other people, including the news media, decided that the rule of law does not stand here, that it should be all about emotion, that it should be about mass will. And the people of Ferguson wanted this cop convicted, so he should have been convicted.
And it wasn't the people of Ferguson. It was a group.
It was a group.
Within Ferguson.
But it's appeasement once again, and that kind of brings me...
I don't even think it's appeasement.
No, it is.
I really believe this mayor believes that.
But it really kind of brings me to the overall problem with this entire case. And this is what happens as a culture. And I'm serious when I say that if I lived in a lower income neighborhood and I was, especially if I was part of the black community, I'd be pissed. And I'll tell you why. This entire thing, this entire situation was done to appease people that either they feel they couldn't educate to tell them exactly how this really should work.
Or how it went down.
Right. Because people that may not know how great... There are people who thought that the grand jury was going to convict him instead of indict him. They thought that last night's decision, he was going to go to jail.
Right. As opposed to just being charges filed.
Right. And then you still have to go through a whole trial and the whole thing. And instead of doing that and going to them intelligently and saying, hey, you need to know how the system works. Because a lot of people may not know. And it's not because they're ignorant or stupid. They just don't know.
And it doesn't just protect the officer, but it protects you as well.
Absolutely.
Because what if you find yourself in a situation, you legitimately had to do whatever, the evidence showed this.
Yep.
It protects you from being falsely prosecuted as well.
Yep. So they appeased them by, instead of doing the investigation and just saying there's no charges filed, that was an appeasement. That was essentially them saying they're too stupid to understand that we can do an investigation.
Right.
So we're going to go to a grand jury. They didn't feel that they could explain to them, hey, you know what, this isn't a conviction. This just decides whether or not there's enough probable cause to charge this person. Which, by the way, for people that don't know, probable cause is not a hard thing to come across.
It's not. It's not even. Yeah, probable cause is just for arrest or for charging.
Right.
Right. But you still have to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right.
Which isn't even a more stringent burden.
Right.
And our system is designed that way
for a reason,
to protect the innocent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, to protect us, all people. So, but here's my point with Kevin Johnson, is he wasn't saying his idiotic statement out of appeasement, because he doesn't really have anybody to appease here in the city of Sacramento. What he is doing is he is interjecting his personal feelings on race relations and his personal feelings towards law enforcement into his public office and public life, and basically undermining the authority and the legitimacy of his own police department.
Yeah, very much so. I agree with that.
So I don't think it was a appeasement at all in that sense. And look, if I worked for the Sacramento Police Department, I would be hard pressed. And look, those men and women in the Sacramento Police Department are professionals.
Mm-hmm.
We've dealt with several of them, and look, they are, and they wouldn't do this because they are professional men and women, and we have a lot of respect for our men and women in uniform, regardless of the uniform. I really like the ones in like dress up uniforms, like nurse outfits,
like that one you have,
right?
Right.
But they wouldn't do this. But if you had lesser cops in your city, and what if the entire department just said, you know what,
sick day tomorrow,
fine, we're all sick,
all of us,
or hey, we're all retiring.
Yeah.
Or we're all applying for different agencies.
Or, you know what, and I said this before, if I was the union head, I would immediately said to the police chief, you need to go talk to the mayor and get an apology. An actual apology, not I take back whatever was offensive. That's a cop-out.
Right.
An actual
no pun
apology.
intended. That's what they could call the sick
And
day.
then if they don't, you take... you get the union together, do a vote of no confidence in the chief, and send a message.
Well,
there's a couple ways to do that.
Look, and I have no idea how politically powerful this law enforcement association is. I don't know. But if they are, can you do a recall election based upon the statements of the mayor? And he has. This isn't the first time the mayor's
foot in it.
Said some ridiculous stuff.
And race-related as well.
And race-related.
So, and he's not the only one. I mean, I know because this is kind of...
But he's the mayor. He should be a leader.
He's one of the most prominent mayors to come out and say anything. He's the mayor of this capital of the state of California. He's very much in the spotlight. He is very, very much always had something to say about everything. And this is one of those times where he's a friend of Obama. He's a personal friend of Obama.
Look, if anybody,
and they went, he made these statements, and it's a hard
look. You know what?
statement.
If you're a listener of the Sackheads Radio Show and you live within the city of Sacramento,
or you don't,
or you don't, but specifically if you're a resident, I would encourage you to call the mayor's office respectfully.
Absolutely,
call the mayor's office and
email
express your displeasure.
Carrier pigeon
based upon.
Just because I would love to see that answered.
That would be great. Wouldn't that?
Mr. Mayor, I have a pigeon.
Ticker tape.
Ticker tape. Pony Express. If you could get the Pony Express to show up at the front of the Sacramento City Hall and deliver a letter, if you don't get that on video, there's something wrong with you.
Do we know anybody with a horse? Do we know anybody that rides a horse that
No.
could deliver a letter?
No.
Nobody? Doesn't liberal Jake ride a horse?
Oh, we could find out.
Right?
We could find out.
Look, I'll ride a horse.
But
but seriously, call this representative, and if that sickens you as much as it does me, show your support for the men and women of the Sacramento Police Department, and express your displeasure with
Absolutely.
this mayor's comments. That is just ridiculous.
And I kind of want to go back to
You know
my
what? Listen,
appeasement conversation in a minute.
People
though.
know we're in Sacramento. Can we
Yeah.
do something from the show?
We can look into it. I think we can. Maybe we can draft a letter from us.
Yeah.
We're a constituent.
We're a business.
Yeah, absolutely. We're business owners in the city of Sacramento, so let's try that. So I want to go back to kind of my appeasement thing and why this whole thing has been an insult, I think, to the people of Ferguson, and like I said, the black community out there, because they weren't upfront and honest, because they were afraid of their reaction. Oh, well, they're going to get
They got Hansed.
Yeah, exactly.
They're too stupid to understand how it works.
Yeah, so they're going to be upset. So we're going to appease them again.
Yes.
And then what happened? Well, now you had all that time for them to build up, like we talked about. We appease them again. And then he comes out and he thinks this 20-minute conversation as he's releasing the indictment, his preamble, if you will, would then clear the air. And that was his last-ditch, oh, crap effort. Like, this is going to happen, and I'm going to see what I can do to save a couple people. But what he didn't realize is nobody was watching him, just like the president's speech almost immediately afterwards. Nobody was watching him. The president should have came out ahead of time if he's going to make a statement, which I don't think he should be making statements in times like that. That's not his job. But
nope.
If he chooses to make a statement, He should have came
as
out.
an informal leader of the African community.
Sure.
No,
As a
honestly,
prominent
right?
leader in the African American
right,
community, yes.
but he's not like a recognized black. Right, he's the
Right.
leader of all of us. He's
Right,
the president
but he's
of the
a
United
prominent-
States. But he's a prominent figure in the African American community. He regularly attaches himself
Yep.
to various causes
He
associated
should have
with them
released
and
a
so
video
forth.
the day before saying, hey, or the week before, and ran it over and over again online. Hey, you know what? The Ferguson's decision's coming out right, wrong, whether you agree or disagree. I implore that you act in a mature, respectful manner.
This is our justice system
This
at
is
work.
our justice system. Talk about it. Hey, you know what? This could be you, like you said. You could be. Let's reverse the roles. What if you're in your house sleeping one night and somebody breaks in and you shoot and kill them? This could be you. So make sure that you understand what's going on. Respect each other. Respect yourself. Respect the properties.
The problem is the people that commit this type of looting and violence, they don't have respect
Right.
for other people or for property.
Right.
They don't. And some of them, like you said, were anarchists and these other groups, the communists that attach themselves. They need things to collapse, right? They're looking for that reason just to go out and act. So I really don't think it would have made a difference.
Well, and you know what's funny is I look at the communist group that it was attached, and there was a communist group there that was part of the protest. There was that communist news reporter as part of a communist newspaper and a communist movement. Do you think the communists really were concerned about the death of one black adult?
Here's you have to think about this when you ask that question.
Mm-hmm.
The communists have a long-standing tradition and relationship with human rights issues.
Yes.
They really care about the people, which is why they are communists.
And all of a
They would
sudden-
never starve a population, right? They
or
would
randomly
never
million murders.
They would never just murder people, right? That disagreed with them. They wouldn't inter them or re-educate them.
That's not the communist
That's
way.
not the communist way. It's about the people. So do I think the communists were concerned based upon the historical evidence of the communists and the Communist Party?
You're right. They were just there for the little guy. But they also, what's my overall thing? The appeasement. The African American community should be outraged at the overall appeasement of this. And listen, there were those race pimps and those race baiters that they finally, in their heads when this all started, got what they wanted. They lost it with Trayvon.
Yep.
They were like, oh, no, we're going to show that just there are white guys out there trying to kill black people left and right. Oh, what do you mean? The guy Zimmerman was white and Hispanic? Oh, yeah, now it looks like the Trayvon wasn't the sweet, nice kid that everyone made him. Oh, we're going to back away the closer the decision.
Oh wait,
gets
isn't 90-some-odd% of the killing is black on black?
Well, they don't even talk about that. Forget that.
Well, no, but there's that.
But that's a fact, but that's not what they want to talk about.
Oh, I thought they
So
they were
then-
mentioning that and being honest.
So
in
then
their
they
arguments.
regrouped, and you saw them try a little bit here and there, and they kind of did their. And you had the Al Sharptons talk about, when you brought up Chicago. Oh, you can't.
I
even
get
say
him
Chicago,
and Don
it's-
King confused.
I also, yeah. Don King's a much smarter guy, I think.
Oh.
And then all of a sudden Ferguson happened, and the race baiters were out there. You know what? We finally got it. We're going to show everybody that this is the plight of the black man as a white man with a gun and the white guys, and we're going to change everything. And then all of a sudden the news jumped on board. You had idiots like Don Lemon, Van Jones, all those guys talking about MSNBC, all of them at MSNBC. I'm not even going to pick out specific names. Mother Jones, all those conservatives, not conservative, progressive, all the progressive communist newspapers, and even Fox. Fox did their own share of race baiting in this. They
did, and even like we talked about, even up until coverage that was just coming out yesterday, they were running things in some of their articles like when the white officer killed an unarmed black teen. I'm paraphrasing, but they used unarmed black teen
all the time
in their
not
in their
adult
coverage.
Teen,
right?
Unarmed,
and they're saying that because he was 18,
right?
So it's technically correct.
Yeah, he's technically
so even
18.
Fox is getting on board here, and so that's why you see some of the Fox shows and they're talking about the race baiting and what. Look, Fox is just as guilty in some of this, not to the extent,
but they were still
but they're
there.
still doing it.
Moving up to it, and they have all
SHR Media was not
at all. Moving up to it, you had a lot of quote unquote black leaders who were talking about literally how if there's no indictment, this just shows you the problem with the system. Why? Because more information was coming out, and they were realizing that the quote-unquote gentle giant was not so. And that Officer Wilson, who has never had one issue, never written up discipline once, received 2 separate accommodations. All in all, seems like he was a good officer that did it for the right reasons.
Yeah. Cared about the community.
So then they started to change the narrative. And the narrative went from this white cop killed this black kid who didn't have a gun to, well, the justice system, if they don't indict, there's something wrong with the justice system, and our justice system is wrong. And if there's not an indictment, there's an adjustment, because they knew what was coming. They knew there was going to be an indictment, and they still had to get out ahead of it and still ramp people up and get people aggravated. So then they blamed the criminal justice system. And the criminal justice system in Ferguson and St. Louis County, Missouri, fed into it.
By sending it to the grand jury.
Right.
But here's the thing. The officer is still the victim here.
Absolutely. And that's something that hasn't really... I give CNN credit because they got an interview with him right away, and they let him get his side out pretty quick, and I'm not one to give CNN credit for much. But they did. And the interview was actually...
fair.
A fair interview.
It was fair.
There was no gotcha. There was no blah, 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 which was shocking and surprising to me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that police officer in the state of Missouri were the victims of a crime. And everybody else they were blamed for everything, and everyone else was turned in.
But not just them, right? I mean, look at, and we touched on it a little bit last segment. We only have a few minutes left in this segment. But the citizens of Ferguson are victims now as well. Those protesters victimized their entire community.
Property values destroyed.
Property values done.
Yep.
Yeah. Good luck rebuilding. Like we already talked about the insurance. You think anybody's going to insure a business there for any kind of reasonable premium?
No.
What about jobs in Ferguson now?
Money lost during this
how many people are out of work now? What's that going to do to the economy? What's that going to do to the state assistance, state welfare system now, where people are going to be getting assistance and whatnot? What's that going to do to the federal? So, because Obama is going to divert funds from somewhere, right? He's not. Is Congress? Who knows? Congress
will
may
he
pass.
Declare a state of emergency?
Maybe, but Congress won't. Congress may not get a spending bill or authorize spending. So what could he do? He could divert funds from another executive agency, right?
Ken says you're forgetting that Home Depot is going to sell a ton of plywood. I paraphrase that, but that's what it came out to be.
So again, you look at everything that's manufactured. Okay, now what about places that supply those businesses now have also lost? I mean, so there's just a huge ripple effect. What about the tax base from those businesses that's no longer there for the city? And it's just
that pays for all the local. The police, fire,
right.
medics, all that
stuff.
So
the real victim here is the officer, Michael Brown, and the other victims there are the citizens of Ferguson themselves.
Yep. And all of this was done by trying to appease people instead of being honest.
And
with them.
how many of those protesters actually lived in the city? Like how many of the rioters actually lived in the city?
You know which? Well,
if they really cared about that community.
You know who I felt bad for during the riots?
Who?
Like I said, with the true protesters, it was video of people standing in front of these businesses trying to stop people going in, saying, "Hey, this is our community. Don't do this to our community."
One of the pastors who was part of the protest, peaceful protest, his church was burned.
Yes,
and he was one of the protesters, peaceful protesters.
I'm just saying. Is it possible the communists did that?
Anarchist. Oh. We're up against a break.
We are up against a break.
We missed an entire I'm coming back with that segment that we missed.
All right, we'll come back with that segment that he missed.
Brought to you by POF.
POFUSA.com.
POFUSA.com.
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
A team of ordinary ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying calf for the stupid pro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Socko as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on The Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to The Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
You know, if our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border and says coordination, we have to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to The Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Welcome back. Sackhead Clint, your host, and we have our in-studio guest, T-Bone extraordinaire. He's silent, though. He's kind of our silent partner. But one of the things we want to come back with, we were supposed to get to it. Sean, you going to introduce the next segment? Sean? I think Socko actually took Sean out and put him in his cage, which is perfect. But Putin, once again, is poking.
Putin really slow.
Not put it in. Putin.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not that kind of show, Socko. Get your mind out of the gutter.
It was.
No, it's not that kind of show. Okay. So Putin is once again kind of poking. I was going to say poking the bear, but that would be poking himself. But he's poking the U.S. And there's a new buildup of Russian troops that are coming along the border of eastern Ukraine. Hey, go ahead and simmer down, Sean. Listen, I know you want to pay me back for not being here last week, but I got this.
Oh.
Russian forces, there's a new buildup along the border of eastern Ukraine. And the U.S., we're not too happy about that. However,
that's exactly what Obama said. Hey, we're not really happy about
No, I think that was Biden.
Oh.
It's unconfirmed. I'm trying to pull the direct quote.
Biden would have said, it's a real pisser.
Biden would say, shoot the fuckers down. That was a quote. Not really. He didn't say that, but he should have. There are two Tu-95 Bear aircraft, the large Soviet bombers, Russian bombers, circled Guam again.
Weird.
U.S. outpost on Guam. Obviously, it's a very strategic base for the United States in the Pacific. And he sent two Bear bombers to do a flyby
Just to say hi.
Around Guam again. And for those of you that don't know, I'm sure most of our listeners know, but the Tu-95 Bear aircraft is capable of carrying nuclear weapons.
Yeah, it's their tactical nuclear long-range bomber.
They're the ones they fly up against Alaska and California.
And the Gulf of Mexico.
And U.S. Pacific Command did confirm that the two aircraft circumnavigated Guam on November 13th. This according to Major Christian Devine. He said, quote, "The aircraft were flying safely in international airspace and in accordance with international norms. As such, the decision was made not to intercept them." Oh, okay. So on February 12th, when two Tu-95s circumnavigated Guam
during the State of the Union,
we intercepted F-15s, or we flew F-15s to intercept them.
Yes.
But this time, we're not really going to do that.
Right.
Well, it's fine. They're just trying to piss us off. What if they weren't? Right? How
we would have found out pretty late, huh?
Right. How irresponsible is that? And look, we're big supporters of the United States military, and I have no idea who made that call. But how irresponsible is that to not send a fighter or two up just to be there?
Especially because we've done it with past practice.
Always.
And, you know, the Russians over the last few months have increasingly, not just us, other allies. Sweden, I think, had a couple of incursions with them recently, not including the submarine that was in their harbor.
Yeah.
There was another report that released all the different, I think NATO released, a bunch of different private aircraft that were put in danger by Soviet aircraft hijinks, flying too close, not answering radio traffic.
And that's an actual Russian flight maneuver, is the hijinks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, they teach that in the Russian Air Academy. So
I think that's the name of it, too, the Russian Air Academy.
It's actually when you go up and you bump the plane next to you with your wing, but you have to say boop at the exact same time.
No. That's something completely different.
Oh, okay.
I think it's when you invert and then keep up communications. I think that's the hijinks, or is that a U.S. move? I don't know.
I don't remember.
I saw it somewhere.
Something about a negative 4G
training
dive. Anyhow.
Video, because I was inverted.
And you know, this is also...
Listen, you were
Russia
out for the segment, so you can't talk.
Russia had a sub off the coast of Australia during the G20 summit, and the Australian Prime Minister has been very outspoken against Russia.
Yep.
So, and that just sums some of the issues up more recently.
And along those same lines, so I wanted to bring that story up because here's Russia once again, either trying to piss us off or kind of testing us. I think it's more of a test, but it certainly shows that we're ramping up towards a Cold War II.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that we did not intercept them, who made that decision? And this is what I'd like to find out.
I would like to find out, too.
Who made the decision not to intercept them and why? Oh, because, well, they're in international airspace. And no, they circumnavigated Guam. They were sending a message. They sent two of them. You don't know what their intention is. You assume what their intention is, and you are correct.
This time.
But what if you weren't? Putin is crazy.
A wild card. He is
right.
He's going to invade. He's going to fully invade the Ukraine.
Of course he is.
Shortly.
Of course he is. And that brings me to another story. I don't know if you saw this, but there was a paper written, and it was called "Countering Unconventional Warfare," and it's a report by the Army Special Operations Command. And what they said is, look, Russia, China, Iran, and the Islamic extremist groups are waging unconventional war. That's the new wave of warfare, is this unconventional war.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of see what's happening in Iran and in the Middle East, and we even went back to the Chinese strategies from the 90s, where there's kind of this hybrid warfare, and it even talked about how Russia supported these insurgents in the Ukraine. And so with this new threat being this hybrid unconventional warfare, the United States has no comprehensive strategy to deal with this type of threat.
No, we
and
haven't.
this paper was published September 26th of this year by Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and it shows really the state we're in with this type of warfare. And so those two things together is why I mentioned them together. You know, we have Russia doing this stuff in the Ukraine. We have the bombers flying up. We have a decision not to intercept them. And on a broader scale than that is we have no strategy to deal with this new type of warfare we're seeing being waged more commonly throughout the world today. It just kind of makes me sick. And I know we're kind of running short on time. I don't know if you have anything on that. The other story,
just real quick, is Russia with Crimea took a page really out of Iran's book with Israel by using proxies. Yes, a lot of them were just soldiers without patches, but they also used proxy terrorist groups in the region to cause the unrest. And Russia has done this before. In Israel, Iran's done this before. So you start having the rogue, quote-unquote, rogue nations that know that if they outright invade, that NATO and other countries are going to respond. So they put these proxy groups out that are still them. They're still being funded and armed through them. But they're using these proxy groups to have that level of separation. It's almost like if you're the president and you're trying to get a new healthcare system and you, instead of hire somebody, you just contract
or consult with somebody.
Yeah, a former MIT trained economist. Just thoughts.
Right, and that wouldn't happen here in the United States, fortunately, you know, for somebody to try and deceive people purposefully, the American voters, to get some form of legislation to take away our liberties through. So that wouldn't happen, fortunately. But it could happen elsewhere in the world, like Russia.
You're right, that would never happen.
Are you taking sneaky pictures of me? Because you're holding your phone at said angle and with sly look on your face as you're manipulating the screen.
I would never take a picture of you.
Yes, you would. You've done it before.
I don't have my wide-angle lens.
I have a personal message to Lois Lerner.
What is it?
Hang on. It's the name of it's the title of this segment.
Oh.
Hey, Lois. Hey, Lois. We found your shit.
So through the course of the investigation...
I like my title better. Let's go with it.
No, I'm not saying your title's wrong.
Oh, I thought you were trying to soften it. About 30,000 of the lost emails, unrecoverable. They're gone. We can't, we can't do any,
I put them in recycling last night. They went bye-bye.
Yeah,
There's nothing I
they're
can
gone.
do.
There's no, sorry, we burned the hard drive, we torched the building down, and we destroyed all the servers. So
we may never know if the conservative groups were truly targeted now.
They've been recovered.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How nice is that?
It's very nice.
That is.
They have to be decoded.
Well, naturally.
It could be a while. But we have them.
Interesting. It'll be interesting. I'm sure the decoding process will take a month or two. I want to know who has copies of the original files.
Some of them could be recovered. Could be duplicates.
Right.
But not all of them.
I still want to make sure that they keep a copy outside of whichever agency found them. Mm-hmm. Like, I want the oversight committee to have a copy. So if these go missing, they can decode them again and again. As a matter of fact, they should make thousands of copies of these.
And send them out to media.
And send them out all over the place for the media. Watch how quick we get that.
You know what? They should send them all to the White House to guard and protect.
Well, they should have what's-his-face, the guy.
And then we could jump the fence and run in and get them because there'd be nobody there to stop us.
No, we're not jumping the fence at the White
House.
No,
we're not jumping the fence at the White House. I'm being ridiculous, of course.
I believe the term you're looking for is
But nobody would
ludicrous.
stop us.
There's nobody there. As long as they leave them on the front lawn, we should be good.
We should be good. Or in the East Room or whatever the heck it was.
So,
Mr. President, these are pajamas? Yes, they are. I need to get these piece of papers under them. Yeah, I'll see you later. Who are you? Was that Sackhead Clint? No, that was Sackhead Sean. I recognize the voice.
I want to see exactly what are these videos. Now, not videos, but files contain.
You're looking at videos on your phone.
Lois Lerner. No. I want to see exactly what these files contain, and you'll know because if Lois Lerner all of a sudden ends up in a non-extraditionary country real soon, that may tell you something. Like, if she starts making for, I think Venezuela is one of them, or something like that, That tells you what's going to be on these. Listen, we all know they disappeared for a reason. We all know now that they're back.
Well, yeah, because there was a hard drive crash.
We all know that they're back. That this could lead to criminal charges.
Don't contradict this, Sacco.
Well, the tapes have all the they record everything. So all their inter-office email, what's on the hard drive, as well as a secondary copy that's kept because it's absolutely. Well, they call it a tape. I don't know if it's a tape.
You're responding. They can't hear what he's asking.
Sacco's asking and clarifying, saying that they're finding the information from backup tapes, and was just kind of asking. And because
he's young and doesn't understand what tape is.
Well, and because he's never seen a tape in his life. But not only for duplicity reasons, they also have those backup tapes because that's all freedom of information stuff. At some point, anything that can be declassified, they have to have copies of that. They have to maintain them. So that's why when it went missing, quote unquote, I was blown away because I'm like, all right, even if the hard drive blew up, you have to have.
But they were gone.
My emails here at SHR get recorded and saved.
They were gone, Sean. Obviously, these emails that are obviously spontaneously recovered are just made up by the Republicans. To try and harm an innocent administration that cares about the people and about their rights.
And about making sure that everyone's liberty is obtained and held in dear.
Right. The IRS said that they're committed to fully cooperating with all of the pending investigations.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
They should have done that from the beginning.
No, they say they remain committed.
Oh, remain committed.
Yeah.
Oh, good. That means we're actually going to get something out of them?
Or we should commit them.
We should commit them. I'm thinking at least treason.
Punishable by umbufu or death.
Or snoo-snoo.
Or snoo-snoo. Either one. Snoo-snoo would be worse and may, in fact, be outlawed if it ever gets taken to the Supreme Court.
Right. Death by snoo-snoo is not pretty.
No, it's not. It's not. It looks pretty, but it's not.
So, I'm hoping that the games will kind of end with this. And
it's not. It's not.
I'm hoping, I said.
Oh.
There's a difference. Hope's not a battle strategy. I have a battle strategy, but it's not hope. I'm hoping that with this information will finally come out. Somehow, some way, it's going to get leaked. Somebody's going to leak it at some point.
Trey Gowdy.
And we'll finally start getting insight. It is also going to be interesting, too, to see if Elijah Cummings amazingly just resigns for no particular reason.
Elijah who?
Cummings. Like, if all of a sudden next week he turns around and he's like, yeah, you know what, I've had enough and it's time for me to get out, that may tell you what might be coming down the pike there on the emails. But it's definitely, this is a story that's fallen by the wayside, and it's still a major story. And I think, time has a tendency to let stories like this drift, especially with the elections. We talked about it with Catherine Engelbrecht, who was one of the original targets of the Tea Party, True the Vote. When we found out about Jean Shaheen the day of the election, it'll be interesting. We'll try to get her back on the phone and see if she has any more information about this, because I know she's got some insider information as well. So it'll be kind of fun to see how this transpires.
I do want to mention something else. I know we're running short on time and we're almost to wrap up. However, Senator Rand Paul did something that I actually agree with, and I think it would actually help the Obama administration. But I agree with what he's...
Did his resignation form for him?
Not as good as that. Senator Paul is actually calling for a declaration of war from Congress against the Islamic State.
Really?
Yes, he is. Look, Congress is the only body that can formally declare war.
Yes.
In the Constitution.
Yes.
And U.S. Congress has not declared war on anybody, not even Vietnam or North Korea, since World War II. There has not been a formal declaration of war. And there's different bills kind of floating around Congress right now giving this president authority to use troops in certain places to fight ISIS.
But a true declaration
has
not been met.
Senator Paul is calling for a true declaration of war. And I agree with him. And look, I believe it protects the president legally. And I'm not a fan of this president. I'm not. I don't agree with most of his policies.
But it takes a lot of question marks out.
I don't know of any policies I do agree with, other than the fact that he authorized.
I think,
but it gives him
Friday is comfortable jeans Friday in the White House now.
Okay, so I agree with that.
I agree with that as well.
And he has a beer summit, which I agree with beer.
Right.
And I like summits.
I don't like right.
And I like helicopters, which he flies in sometimes.
Right.
I
would like the beer summits if they were more well thought out.
Right, but just the fact that there's beer involved, you have to give him props.
Right.
Okay. By props, I mean fake doctors standing behind him in smocks. But he already has those. Never mind.
Breakaway bottles and chairs.
Right.
So during the beer summit,
foam anvils.
How great would that be?
Instant holes.
He just comes out and he's sitting there drinking a beer, and Biden walks by him. He just takes the bottle up and hits Biden on the head. It's a breakaway bottle, and Biden just keeps walking like nothing happened.
Biden looks back and says, "Pussy, I thought it was a real bottle."
Oh no! Biden takes out another bottle. Is like, "This one's real," and does it. It's himself.
Oh, really? Huh. Not that we condone violence against the United States, even if it is committed by the vice president himself. But look, I think this protects the president.
Yeah.
Even more, because there is a formal declaration of war, and I think we need to declare war against ISIS. We've said this before on this show, so obviously Senator Paul is a huge fan of ours.
Yes, absolutely.
It would appear that way.
Right, that's the only.
We know his delegates listen, or his father's delegates listen.
Yeah, absolutely. We have quite a few delegates that listen. So, I think it's far too long, but I think it's really intelligent. I think it's something that needs to be done. And it's too little too late. I mean, listen, this ISIS thing is still going. People forget about ISIS. It's funny how Ferguson, the elections, and all the other stuff has really taken people's eyes away from the international occurrences. And Benghazi's fallen by the wayside. ISIS fallen by the wayside. Russia. People don't realize that China's new plane is flying right now. They have an aircraft carrier. There's still a lot of international things that we need to worry about. And because we know the foreign policy of this president is ridiculous.
It is. But anybody who's interested, I know we're kind of getting to the end here. Anybody who's interested, you can pull up, the Senator Paul's war resolution. If you just Google, or we don't like Google here, so Bing it, Senator Paul's war resolution, and you can actually pull up the verbiage. It's like a 2-page, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was close to 2, 5 and a quarter page document. And it's a pretty interesting read, and I like it. Look, I like Senator Paul.
I do.
I'll tell you, here's what would give this country fits in a 2016 presidential election. You ready?
Yeah.
Senator Paul for the Republicans and Webb for the Democrats.
Oh, wow.
Webb, a blue dog Democrat.
Wow.
More conservative on 2A issues, a little fiscally, but socially kind of liberal on some social issues.
That would be an interesting.
And then you have Paul, who's more libertarian on certain things, but conservative on a lot of things.
That would be an interesting combination,
right?
And then
or a Paul Webb ticket.
Split the ticket, right?
Yeah.
I would like to see though. I would like to see Webb debate Hillary, because Hillary's going to run.
Well, look, Webb already filed that first kind of salvo against Hillary this week.
Right.
So kind of interesting. Wants to go against the Clinton war machine, but he would be very interested because he served was Secretary of the Navy, I think, under Reagan for like a year or maybe a little over a year before he resigned because he disagreed with something. But he's a combat veteran, military service. He's and look, I'm just saying I think he's a far better option than Hillary, but he's actually more blue dog Democrat on a lot of things. I would like to see him run on the Democrat side. And I'll tell you, if it's him and Romney, I'd be, I don't know.
It's kind of one and the same.
No. Webb may be a little more...
right of Romney?
Yeah.
Anything's possible. Closing out closing out comments in the chat rooms. Ken says that we need a war on chocolate deprivation. Something that wins for all of us.
Now, does he mean that in a racial sense, or does he mean that in the candy sense?
He said this is chocolate. Egg says this is Chocolate Nation. So I don't know what they're talking about.
It sounds to me like Ken just found the new name of his show.
Chocolate Nation. Ken should do a once a week just like hangout show.
You know what?
Ken should Chocolate Nation.
Ken should get a segment on the Sackheads show
called
Chocolate Nation.
Ooh. Ken, I will have my people call your people.
We just
can
did
work that out. Egg still thinks we need to finance the SHR aircraft carrier just in case.
Yep, no, I like it.
We're on it. We're working on it. The problem is the Kitty Hawk was just scrapped, so we got to find one that's coming out of service.
Yeah. We got this this tin fishing boat and some plywood, and we're starting there. We have some rubber band launched gliders.
Fortunately, T happens to be a welder, and he's going to do some work for us on the aircraft carrier. The problem is we don't have a piece of property big enough to build it and or transport it. So we're going to have to
build it in segments.
We're going to have to rent a public dock for a few weeks.
Actually, well, remember what our plan was. We're going to build it at various locations, and then we're going to load it in the back of pickup trucks, drive it out to a public beach, and then he's going to weld it there, and we're going to worry about how to get into the water later while we drink beer. I mean, we had this planned out. You remember this.
Can you imagine, though, people would lose it if somebody owned a private aircraft carrier?
Why?
People would still lose it. I don't know why. You don't need that. What do you need that for?
Because it's awesome. I want it.
Because it's money-making. And here, let me tell you why. The capitalist in me. You have all these people buying all these old retired warbirds, these plane enthusiasts.
Why not buy warships?
Buy an old warship and then charge them to do deck carrier landings.
Charge who?
The people that are buying all these old warbirds.
Yeah, here's why I wouldn't. Because if one of those guys crash,
you have them
deck,
sign everything off.
Yeah.
Dude, essentially the title of that would be, dude, you're dead to us. And then it would go down the whole thing of essentially, you die, it's your own fault. Sorry, we push you into the ocean. I think that's a good disclaimer.
And I think that's legal, right? That's like good legal jargon.
Can you have legal check into that, please?
Have legal
Sacco?
check into that.
I think that's
Sacco.
Think about that.
And even if the cables aren't set right, it's your fault because you shouldn't have trusted us to land on our stuff.
And by cable, I mean
because we don't know what we're talking about.
We string across.
Right. It's
broke another one. Oh, that one didn't power up when he touched down. Get the plow and push the rest in too.
Dude, we'll have Sacco out there old style, right, with ping pong paddles. Our light system won't work. He'd be out there with ping pong paddles, directing them in.
And the whole time on the microphone with us going, you guys have, you know I have no idea what I'm doing, right?
And then after the plane crashes,
because the last 3 planes just went into the water on their sides.
And then when as T just sits there holding his beer and he watches the plane go in, he's got his welding torch. He's like, yeah, I can fix that.
And literally just turn around and be like, Sacco, did we get the money from that guy first? Yes. Okay, that's fine.
Look, I've been with T when we passed a big rig full of those smashed cars. and T was like, I could restore every one of those.
And he could.
And he could.
Absolutely could. What was the latest one? You have a plasma torch now, right? Yeah.
That was a yeah for those that couldn't hear T. That was a yeah. That's the most he's said on air.
Oh, and you're going to hear more
ever
from T. We're going to do this
an after party,
after show, the 15-minute after show party, and where he's going to interview us about the best parts of the show. I think that needs to be done.
And we're going to start now.
No. I think we need to start that at the end of the new year, at the beginning of the new year.
Don't be a sissy, Sean. We're going to start now.
No, he's not ready. Don't put him on the spot like that.
Listen, we've primed him for this.
What, 2 hours ago?
Yes!
We mentioned it once while we were drunk and 2 hours ago. I don't think now.
Which was the same time.
Folks, it has been a blast.
Hang on. We may have something coming up after the first of the year.
We may have something.
We may have a live Sackhead show live from Vegas.
Ooh, that's
on a Sackhead
awesome.
Clint party.
That's an awesome one. We should do that. Folks, thank you so much for joining us this week. We will be back next Wednesday evening here on the SHR Media Network. Make sure you check out all of our great shows on SHR. The Evan Miller Report, The Exceptional Conservative Show, Reaver Common Sense, Outcry with Rooster. Check us out, shrmedia.com. 5 p.m. Pacific tomorrow, 8 on the East Coast. You check out the Evan Miller Report, followed by The Exceptional Conservative. For Sackhead Clint, Sackhead Sacco, the Teaster himself, and Sackhead Sean, I'm saying good night.
The best late night
Good
conservative talk show in America.
Just like that.
Zach Hayes
Good
Radio.
night.
And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late night conservative talk, Sackhead Radio. The best late night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.